Hey there, welcome to the Snailed It podcast with Danikka and Erin, brought to you by Author's Own Publishing.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Snailed It podcast with Danikka and Erin. Today we are talking tropes, specifically tropes that you will find in romance and fantasy. And are they getting a bad rap or not?
Yes, we wanted to record this episode off of the back of the In Defense of Romance episode. So if you listen to that episode, you'll know that we started to go on a bit of a tangent, as we do, about tropes, and we pulled ourselves back to the topic at hand. So then after that episode, I made a little bit of a list of like tropes that we know get a bit of a bad rap, and like warning in advance, this episode will be a little bit chaotic, I think, because we both have strong feelings about tropes
and maybe
romance
ranty.
But you guys seem to love that, so this is where we're going with this, just like fair warning in advance. But yeah, basically the topic is, are they bad tropes, or do they just need to be written a bit better, or are they used, you know, a little bit too much like plot devices? Are people just like writing to the trope instead of thinking about how the trope fits their character and their stories? And then the second question is, are they bad tropes, or do you just not like it when women write them instead of men?
Yeah, which at the time of recording is particularly relevant because there is a lot going on at the moment about fairy smart, dragon smart, etc.
Yeah.
We are recording sort of mid-Feb, so there is still dragon smart, fairy smart.
Yeah, it's just off the back of the latest Fourth Wing release and, you know, people talking about that.
Why are books written by women romantasy and books written by men fantasy?
Yeah.
And why are books written by women called porn when books written by men can have the same amount of explicit content, and yet no one really talks about them?
Yeah, it's still just called
George R.R. Martin is one of the ones that I've seen referred to the most.
Yeah. Having not read George R.R. Martin, really, I can't comment on that. I do know that like majority of like women writers that I know don't write a lot of incest and or rape.
Well, look, I think there is, our dark romance.
Yes, outside of dark
writers
romance.
and fans will know about it. But we're not talking specifically about dark romance. But even then, in those stories, they're romance, so they still get their happily ever after. But I did see someone comparing them the other day, and the way she was very pragmatic about her comparisons. If you are a very smart, as she called it, reader, and you have people in your life who are, you know, giving you a hard time about that, and they are fantasy readers themselves, then you can sort of say, well, George R.R. Martin, for example, I haven't read it, but I watched a lot of Game of Thrones, has a lot, there is a lot of explicit content in his books. Incest, Joffrey being just a sadistic piece of shit generally. And that doesn't necessarily advance the plot at all. I mean, it advances you hating Joffrey, but I don't know how much that's helping you with the plot. But basically her point was, if someone is giving you a hard time about it, I can't remember her exact wording now, of course, when I'm saying this. I might have to come back to that. But it was something about, you are basically like laboring under semantics based in misogyny.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, we need that as a catchphrase.
And there you go. So why do we need to be doing? We don't want to be laboring under misogyny based semantics. So let's just
call it what it is, and we're all
let's just call it what it is. And also just let people read what they fucking want. I'm gonna get that put on a t-shirt.
Yes, actually. We'll add that to the AOP merch store list.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's a ever-growing list.
It's an ever-growing list. Yeah.
Oh my god. I'm gonna have too many t-shirts, like one for every day of the month, because it's like,
when we start recording the podcast in video, we'll just be in all these different t-shirts all the time.
And we may try and match them to the day, or we might always be in different ones. We'll see how we go.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we're going back on a
started on a tangent today. Anyway,
so we have feelings about this trend, but anyway,
we really do.
I'm going to start with
reining it
those
in.
tropes that we
Let's go.
wrote down, and then we can kind of attack them. The tropes that we wrote down, I kind of just like re-listened to the defensive romance episode. The tropes that I wrote down kind of off the back of that were second chance romance, enemies to lovers, miscommunication, and third act breakups. They're all tropes that people love to hate or they really love. Like people will have lots of different feelings about them. Another one that
Yeah.
you said was the pregnancy trope. Surprise pregnancy, people have lots of feelings about that one. I'm the same as you. I don't love that trope, but some people do. I think I want to start with enemies to lovers. I do think that it is, because people do love it, it's overused a lot. And I think like people just use it as a reason to write a guy as an asshole.
I think in contemporary, I think it is he's an asshole and he's also a man baby who can't deal with the fact that he's in love with her. Because in the enemies to lovers in a contemporary setting is almost always he has been in love with her since the moment he saw her, the Haney game being one example, and can't deal with his feelings about that. And so is a complete prick to her and kind of bullies her into liking him. Or stops being an asshole when he realizes she also likes maybe. I feel like in fantasy it is used more accurately as enemies to lovers because they are quite literally enemies.
Yes. Yeah, they're
Like
more often than not on opposite sides of things.
On opposite sides of a divide, but you can still get him being like a disproportionate asshole, maybe.
Yeah, and I think in fantasy, I think we often see more of this is probably another trope that I don't like, and I saw a video about this the other day as well, and I've seen like quite a lot of videos about it, but in the fantasy enemies to lovers, I think you also see the other trope more often than not, where it's like the strong female character who, you know, rejects femininity and, you know, probably shoots a bow and arrow.
I've seen a lot of that. Like, I don't want to wear this ball gown. I want to wear my trousers.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to wear a tunic and tights instead of.
How dare you feed me when I'm starving?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's very like not like other girls.
Yeah, exactly. They're not like other girls trope.
Yeah.
And like that's tired as well. Where
I want to see like all the other girls. I want to see she loves the ball gown and she loves doing her hair. I want to see if anyone has read Storm Warning by Nellie Wilson, which is like Twister but sexy and millennial.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a novella. It's so good. And the female character in that, her name's Violet. She's a meteorologist. They're both meteorologists. And I'm pretty sure there is a line in there where he says something about like not wanting to be like other girls. She's like, are you fucking kidding? I want to be other girls. Other girls are cool. And I'm like, yes, this is the energy we want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I want to see like that kind of Violet from Storm Warning character in a fantasy setting.
Yeah, we want to see girls. Like we want Legally Blonde in books. Yeah.
Can you imagine Elle Woods like throwing a knife?
Yeah.
Oh God. By the end of this episode, I'm going to have half a book outlined in my head, I feel, from that one comment.
Let's go. We need this.
Don't get me wrong, I love the strong female character.
Oh,
although
absolutely.
I do kind of hate that we have to call them that because it makes it sound like they're not always a strong female character. It's also, though, a reaction to fantasy often written by men where she is the, you know,
well,
what
it's
do
a
we
reaction
do
to
now?
the damsel in distress quote.
Totally.
The damsel in distress trope, which is another trope that is, you know, I like that it's been reversed in a lot of those like kind of strong female situations where, you know, the woman will come in and save the guy and he becomes the damsel in distress, you know, sometimes in a slapstick way, sometimes in a, you know, he actually does need her saving kind of way. I think I just inadvertently called it a reverse trope. I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah.
But like turned it around.
Yes. But that is a genuine reverse trope.
It is, yeah.
Age
absolutely.
gap? Not. Grumpy Sunshine? Not.
Yeah.
Damsel in distress is an actual trope that when reversed would mean a man is the damsel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so enemies to lovers. I love enemies to lovers for the snippy banter.
Yes.
Etc.
There's so much room for amazing dialogue. Yeah.
We all love
Yeah.
some snippy banter. Let's be
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it is just an excuse for him to be a prick, we're like, do we need that? And there's also, I think, in contemporary more so, there's a tendency to call what is probably more like hate to love enemies. Because like it's hard to find genuine enemies in a contemporary setting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like without a Romeo and Juliet style retelling, no one is a genuine, really, enemy. Maybe that I've read. They probably are out there, but I haven't read them.
I feel like if you could set up some kind of, because I'm thinking about, for some reason, whenever I think about enemies in a contemporary modern day setting, my mind always goes to the show Suits. Because they all seem to genuinely hate each other in that show, even when they're friends, they're frenemies. You know what I mean?
Like in that setting, it's rivals. They're rivals to lovers. They're not enemies.
Yeah.
So, and that's the other thing. So I think in contemporary, rivals to lovers is often mislabeled enemies. And I think rivals to lovers is more interesting in that setting.
I think so too. Yeah. Because I feel like rivals, as just part of the definition of the word, I feel like there's this inbuilt respect for each other that enemies don't necessarily have. Like I feel like enemies, you have to overcome the dehumanization of the other person, because I feel like to be an enemy, you have to dehumanize the other person, because it comes from being at war with each other. So I feel like when you're rivals, it's about one-upping each other more so.
Which is totally the Suits vibe. That is 100%. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's Harvey and Lewis. It's Harvey and Lewis live.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Imagine if that was a rivals to lovers.
That would be so good. So good.
If that has not already been written.
The fanfic writers are all over it for sure. Yeah.
Sure. I was going to say surely. Yeah. Surely. Get rid of Mike. I never liked Mike. But Harvey and Lewis.
I don't know. People love Harvey and Donna though, don't they? Like.
Oh yeah.
Because like Donna,
she was way too smart for him though.
She was, yeah. She was the real mastermind of that show.
She wasn't falling for any of his brouhaha. No.
But yeah, so I think enemies to lovers, if you don't write to the trope, you write your characters, but then, you know, if they are actually enemies and you have that to overcome. And then in a contemporary setting, like you said, if you think of it more as rivals to lovers rather than enemies to lovers, and then think about how you would actually overcome that kind of hate to love, because you have that basis of respect, because you are rivals, you respect what the other person does. Yeah, I guess you have to think about your individual book and how the trope fits the story you're trying to tell, instead of how your story fits the trope.
Yeah, I think also in the contemporary sense, especially if you've got a rivals or a hate to love or whatever, there's often an element of another trope that we will be discussing later, miscommunication.
Yes, and we can talk about that next, because I feel like I actually really like this trope, but it gets hated on so bad.
But again, I think it depends how it's done.
Yeah, I feel like the miscommunication is often used in a third act breakup, which is another trope that gets hated on a lot. It's often used out of the blue, kind of just brought up as something then the characters just don't talk about. They just don't have the conversation, and they just misunderstand each other, and then it leads to a third act breakup when they could have just had a conversation about it. And there's no believable barriers preventing them from having said conversation.
The conversation, yeah.
But I feel like with a miscommunication trope, if you set up barriers to their communication from the beginning, whether that's their, you know, in a shard of glass as a person, like they're unable to, you know, they're trying to learn to communicate better, but their trauma or previous experiences confirm a bias that then this, you know, problem triggers, or their communication styles are just fundamentally different. There's a cultural difference or something like that. Miscommunication can work very well because it happens all the time in real life. Like people are not taught how to communicate. So miscommunication is a part of life. So it's going to happen, and it's going to lead to problems in relationships and early on in relationships as well. So I think, the miscommunication trope and the third act breakup trope, I think, are both fundamental parts of a romance telling and of any kind of relationship story, whether it's a romance or whether it's a family or friendship story. I think that kind of marrying of those two tropes together often works really well, but it has to be set up from the start, and you have to be working towards it, and not having been written 2/3 of a book and get to the third act and be like, oh, I have to have some kind of conflict here.
Yeah.
So, and then manufacture it there and then move on and then resolve it, because then that's where this hatred for these tropes kind of comes from, is they feel manufactured and unbelievable. And so then people are like, well, I don't buy this. Like, the trope is the problem, when it's like, yes, the trope is the problem, but it's because people are thinking of it as a trope instead of as a storytelling tool that you can build around.
Yeah. Because I am quite partial to a third act breakup.
Me too.
When they're not being idiots. Although part of it is that they're both being idiots. You know?
Because people are idiots.
Because people are idiots. Because they're idiots, and then you know that they're going to go away and talk to their friend, and their friend's going to go, you're being a fucking idiot. And then they're going to go, oh, you're right, I am being an idiot. And then they go and make up, and it's all sunshine and rainbows. Yeah, because I think I've read a couple that don't have the third act breakup. And in that last bit of the book, like, I'm still on tenterhooks waiting for something to happen, because we're so conditioned to be expecting that conflict. And then when it ends and there hasn't been a breakup, you're like, oh, like, it's, I don't know, it feels slightly less satisfying maybe for me personally.
And like, it doesn't always need to be a third act breakup. Like, but there has to be some kind of third act conflict or tension. Will they, won't they, in a romance? So like, I like to use, for an example in this, Role Playing by Kathy Yardley. So
You've mentioned that one before.
So they do have a third act breakup in this one, but it's not because of a conflict between the two of them. It's because they're unsure if their two lives are going to match up, because she's a single mum and because he's got his mum to care for, his aging mum. They, you know, have this kind of moment at the end where it's like, we both have different things to prioritize in our life. Are we able to prioritize our relationship? And they have to think about that and decide and work through it kind of together. But it's still a will they, won't they moment. Like, are we going to get a happily ever after, or are we going to get a goodbye? Like, we don't know. So there's still that kind of tension, and there's still that possibility of they have to go their separate ways. And they do have a moment where they both go away and they both have to think about it. And you know, she talks to her son and he talks to, you know, I think it's his brother, but like, they go away. And then one of the longest standing rom-coms of all time that people quote all the time is Notting Hill. And like, they have a big third act breakup. They have a massive third act breakup. She yells and shouts at him and storms off, and they don't talk to each other for months. And then she comes back.
I think it's a year.
And he says, no, go away. And everyone's like, well, are they going to end up together or not? And then he has to do the big romantic gesture kind of thing. So that's what makes the ending of that movie really satisfying, but it wouldn't be satisfying without that breakup. But it's because it's written well, and it's because, again, in the Notting Hill situation, their lives are fundamentally different. She's this
so different
A-list celebrity, and he's this, you know, poor bookkeeper in London. So are their lives going to match together? Are they going to be able to make it work? So there has to be these fundamental things that they need to decide, are they going to be able to overcome to be together? And again, in Notting Hill, there was a miscommunication too, because she thought that he'd dropped her into the paparazzi.
Oh, that's right.
And he didn't, but she didn't listen because of her previous biases of having people use her being an A-list celebrity. She just assumed that he was like everyone else when he wasn't.
I recently rewatched that movie. That is a great movie.
Obsessed with that movie.
The scene when she comes over for dinner and the sister follows into the toilet, like, it's so good.
And they're all just like laughing, and they're just like, oh my God, there's a celebrity here for dinner.
There's a celebrity. Because can you imagine, like, going to your friend's house for dinner and friggin' whoever is sitting at the dinner table? Like, who would be, apologies for the tangent, but who would be like the now equivalent of that level of celebrity that you would meet?
I feel like in London it could be someone like Florence Pugh.
Imagine that. Oh my God, I would die. I would definitely follow her into the toilet. That would happen.
Same.
Yeah, Florence Pugh, like Daisy Edgar Jones, maybe.
Oh,
like
yes.
kind of,
that's a good one. Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, what about who's the Irish girl from Bridgerton, the short one, Nicola Coughlan?
Oh, Nicola Coughlan.
Yeah.
I would also follow her into the toilet.
Yeah.
Yes, I would just want to be best friends with her. Let's go, Nicola. Let's go.
Low key, if they ever made a movie about my life, that's who I want to play me.
Oh my God, she's so amazing. Just as a tangent to the tangent, she currently is narrating a book on Audible that's for free. I can't remember what it's called. We'll put it in the show notes. It's misdirected, I think, maybe.
Oh, okay. We'll look it up and we'll put it in the show notes. Yeah.
Yeah, I downloaded it purely for Nicola Coughlan.
Yeah, no. Well, she's a brilliant narrator.
Obviously,
She narrated
yeah.
another series about witches, and oh my god, I'll find the title of that. We'll
Her
put that
and
in the,
witches? Oh my
yeah.
god. Anyway.
Oh,
Okay.
so good. Yeah, her accents, she kills it.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
Okay. We're reining it back in.
So anyway, we have covered enemy slubbers, we've covered third act breakup, we've covered miscommunication. What we haven't covered, second chance romance. And people really don't like this one
Honestly,
either.
it is not. I wrote one, and it's not one of my favorites either to read. I think because it depends on why they broke up the first time. It's very dependent on that for me, I think. Because if it's some like really big dramatic thing, how do you come back from that?
Yeah. And they have to resolve their previous issues. I think so often in those like kind of second chance scenarios, they don't resolve their previous issues. They just kind of are like, oh, well, we're 10 years older now, or we're, you know, in different places in our lives. So we're just going to gloss over that, and we're different people, so it doesn't matter. Where, yeah, I think they do need to revisit that sometimes, especially if it's like, I've seen a lot of like, you know, people who've gotten divorced and then they get remarried again, like that trope, especially like if you've been married before and had a divorce and then you get back together and get remarried, it's like you definitely have a lot of issues to work through before you can get to that point again. It's not like like in your second chance romance, they had a summer fling and then they got back together a few years later. Or like if you were together as teenagers and then you just like went off to different colleges or something and then you meet again later in life. Like I think that's different. That's a different type of second chance romance.
Yes, agree. Yes. So I feel like there is probably like a subcategory or a side category of like marriage in crisis. I have never actually read a marriage in crisis.
Me neither.
One. I can't even think of any off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure there was one in the Chloe Lisa's written one in that. What's that series called? My brain is the one with the big family, the like Swedish American family. You know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know. I can't remember what it's called either.
Anyway, she's incredible. And I've read the first two in that series and adored them. But I think the third one was Marriage in Crisis, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do it. But that's totally a me thing.
I feel like I could read it. Like, it's not that I don't want to read a Marriage in Crisis. I just haven't really ever, like, people don't tend to write many of them. Like, I haven't seen many. I see it in movies more often, I think. But that could be maybe just because I pay more attention to it. But also I think, and maybe it's because they don't always have happily ever afters. Maybe I see the Marriage in Crisis more in women's lit than I do in romance. And so maybe that's why. And if you've been a long time listener of the podcast, you know how we feel about women's lit. It shouldn't be a thing, but anyway.
One day when we have video, you will see.
You'll see our faces.
My loud facial expressions during those kind of moments.
But no, so I think again with the second chance romance, it's more about just thinking about how the trope will work for your story rather than writing your story to the trope. And I think the only thing we really haven't talked about, we talked about a couple of other things that weren't on our list, but we haven't really gone to the surprise pregnancy. Yeah.
I have feelings. Now that I think about it, I have actually read one book that had surprise pregnancy in it that I loved, Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating. I love that book by Christina Lauren. Love it. That may be a spoiler that I've now said that. Apologies if no one's read that book. But it is called Surprise Pregnancy for a reason. But I have noticed more recently people saying that surprise pregnancy is one of the tropes rather than just like dropping you in it which I think is smart because lots of people have a problem with that trope. And if you're not warning people beforehand, they are potentially going to DNF or get a little bit peevy.
Yeah, in the reviews.
There is one that a lot of people, though, I'm sure I've seen a lot of people talking about, they're like, I hate this trope, but this writer has made me love it. And now I can't remember what it is. I think it was one by Maisie Eddings, but now I can't remember what it was called. Lizzie Blake's Best Mistake, I think.
Oh, okay.
I've heard amazing things about it. Have never read it because I'm hopeless like that. But that is like a surprise pregnancy one that people are like, God damn it, do I like surprise pregnancy now? Because of Maisie Eddings.
I see, again, I think that this is a good example of, do you hate the trope or do you just hate that it's not done properly?
Yeah, exactly.
And see, I think, again, this isn't to hate on authors because I think again, there's not enough information out there teaching people how to write. It's gate kept in universities, and like to find information to help you learn how to write so that your audiences get the meaning, you know, is really hard to find on the internet. So like, we're not blaming authors at all, but tropes exist as a tool for you, not as like something that you use as like a framework to write your book to. So I think it just goes to show the difference between someone who knows how to use a trope as a tool versus as a framework.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. I think that was all I wanted to say on that. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's our advice on tropes. I think that's kind of coming at the tropes thing, is that none of the tropes are bad per se.
No.
Unless they're like openly misogynistic or hateful or excluding people. But the tropes that are none of those things and just generally get a bad rap are usually because they're being used as a framework or something to kind of write a book to market, rather than something that's a tool to enhance the journey of the characters in the book. That's kind of the conclusion.
You kind of shoehorn your characters in there rather than letting it feel a bit more organic.
Exactly. Yeah.
What are some of your favorite tropes?
I love found family. Like, I think I pretty much will just like, I don't think I've ever read anything that didn't have an element of found family in it, whether it's romance or fantasy, or like even the mysteries and things that I read, they quite often have some kind of found family element. I love, if it's romance, I quite often enjoy a friends to lovers situation, and I am a bit of a sucker for an enemies to lovers. Like you just can't go past it. You just can't go past it. Like, I was trying not to be a basic bitch. I was trying to think of something, but like, I really don't think it's basic. I think you can't go past it. It's really just like chef's kiss. It's so good because like you have to overcome so much to fall in love with your enemy. So it's like that. It's such a journey to go on, and I love it. And then there's a reason why it's so popular.
Or there was something that I saw the other day that was enemies to lovers, or like, as I like to call it, sweetheart derogatory to sweetheart affectionate.
Yes, exactly.
Which is so accurate. Because the marrying of enemies or rivals to lovers and nicknames, that's the stuff.
Yeah.
That is the stuff.
Yeah. And especially when you like pair that with slow burn, and then the banter goes on for so long, and it's just like you're just on tenterhooks the whole time. Like,
so many near misses.
So good, so good. And like, I just love a good grumpy sunshine. Like, no matter who's the grumpy sunshine, that dynamic is just always so beautiful. I love it so much. What else? I'm trying to think.
Two of my like favorite are fake dating.
Yes.
I should say fake dating, not marriage of convenience, because that I have feelings about that. But anyway, fake dating and like siblings, best friends, sibling.
Yeah, like when you
and if those two are together, like if there is fake dating and best friend sibling, so good. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. No, I think that's what I like about the friends to lovers thing as well. It's like you've known each other a long time and never really thought of each other as an option, and then something changes one day, and it's like, oh, wait a second, you've been here all along. Yeah, I think that's what I like about the siblings best friend situation too. Yeah.
So there you go. There's some of our favorite tropes, along with some that maybe get a bad rap.
Yeah. But I think
that's all. I think we've done enough tangents for one day.
Yeah, that was some fun tangents. That was some fun writing information, I think, and some just like us just going off on
Hit us with both your favorite tropes and ones you dislike.
Yes,
we want to hear them.
Your favorite and your least favorite. Let's go.
Or if we had some that were our least favorite, if they are ones you enjoy, what are some books that you would recommend to bring us over to the side of we should like them?
Yes. Yeah, we're looking for more buddy reads. So
when we can get
when we can find time. Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, that's all. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Snailed It podcast with Danikka and Erin, brought to you by Author Zone Publishing, the home of indie publishing. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, and follow us on Instagram at Author Zone Publishing. Music brought to you by Mikkel, with more details in the show notes.